February 20th, 2023. A day that began like any other in Brownsville, Tennessee. But by nightfall, gunshots would echo through a neighborhood, a car would crash into a yard, and a young mother's future would be violently stolen. Tyeasha Starks arrived at her ex-boyfriend's family home that evening for what should have been a routine custody exchange. Instead, she found herself in a confrontation that escalated with stunning speed. Within moments, Tyeasha Curry, the father of her child's father, pulled out a firearm. The sound of gunfire shattered the evening quiet. 5 shots, 5 bullets, striking a 22-year-old mother who had only come to collect her 1-year-old son. As neighbors rushed outside, they witnessed Tyeasha stumbling back to her vehicle, desperate to escape. But her injuries were too severe. She managed to start the car but lost control almost immediately, crashing into a nearby yard. Despite frantic efforts from bystanders and first responders who quickly arrived at the scene, Tyeasha Starks died that night. A young woman with extraordinary potential whose life ended over a custody dispute. But who was Tyeasha Starks before she became a headline? Born in 2000 in Brownsville, Tennessee, Tyeasha grew up in a close community where her talents stood out from an early age. Her academic excellence followed her through Haywood High School, where she graduated with honors in 2018. More than just a stellar student, Tyeasha embraced life fully. Cheering on the sidelines as part of the cheerleading squad, competing on the softball field, and actively participating in both Beta Club and Spanish Club. After high school, Tyeasha pursued bigger dreams at Austin Peay State University. With a biology major and aspirations of becoming a dentist, she approached her education with determination and focus. At the time of her death, she was mere credits away from completing her degree, a testament to her perseverance despite the mounting challenges in her personal life. Beyond the classroom, Tyeasha demonstrated remarkable work ethic as a pharmacy technician at Walgreens. Her colleagues described her as reliable, detail-oriented, and genuinely caring toward customers, qualities that would have served her well in her planned dental career. What made Tyeasha truly exceptional, however, was her ability to balance these commitments while nurturing her greatest joy, her son, Tyeasha. The 1-year-old became the center of her world, the motivation behind her relentless drive for success. Friends recall how she would study late into the night after putting him to bed, determined to create a future where they would both thrive. Not content with being just a student and employee, Tyeasha also channeled her entrepreneurial spirit into creating her own business, Tye's Extensions. This side venture showcased her creativity and business acumen, providing additional income to support her family while allowing her to express her passion for beauty and style. Those who knew her best describe a young woman with an infectious smile and unwavering resilience. Her ability to maintain optimism while juggling motherhood, academics, work, and business ventures made her a source of inspiration within her community. Even on her most challenging days, Tyeasha approached life with grace and determination. She had this light about her, one friend recalled. No matter how tired she was from studying all night or working all day, she always had energy for her son and a kind word for everyone else. That light was extinguished far too soon, leaving a void in her community and raising troubling questions about justice, safety, and the protection of vulnerable parents in custody situations. Before we continue with this story of tragedy and the search for accountability, take a moment to subscribe to our channel. By joining our community, you'll receive notifications about our latest true crime documentaries that shed light on cases that demand attention. Your subscription helps us continue investigating stories like Tyeasha's, stories that might otherwise fade from public consciousness. If this case resonates with you, hit that subscribe button and notification bell now. Let's ensure Tyeasha's story reaches the audience it deserves. Tyeasha Starks and Bryce Curry's relationship began like many young romances, full of promise and affection. Friends described their early days together as harmonious, with both sharing dreams for their future. However, as with many relationships between young adults still finding their way, cracks began to form. By the time Tyeasha discovered she was pregnant, their connection had already grown complicated. When their son Tyeasha was born in early 2022, Both Tyeasha and Bryce committed to co-parenting, despite their romantic relationship having ended. Initially, they attempted to forge a cooperative arrangement that would allow their son to maintain strong bonds with both parents. Tyeasha, ever pragmatic, recognized that her educational aspirations required support, and she welcomed Bryce's involvement in their child's life. The pair established what the legal system classifies as an informal custody arrangement, a decision that would later prove fatally flawed. Without court oversight or formal documentation, they agreed that Bryce would care for Tyeasha 3 days per week, while Tyeasha attended her university classes. This schedule allowed her to balance her academic responsibilities with motherhood, a delicate juggling act that she managed with remarkable determination. For a time, this system functioned adequately. Tyeasha could attend her biology courses at Austin Peay State University while knowing her son was with his father. However, as weeks turned to months, the foundation of trust necessary for such arrangements began to weaken. The turning point in their co-parenting relationship came not from disagreements between Tyeasha and Bryce alone, but from the increasing presence of Bryce's parents in custody matters. What began as grandparents offering occasional childcare support evolved into something more controlling. Tyeasha and his wife inserted themselves into decisions about Tyeasha's care, offering unsolicited opinions about Tyeasha's parenting methods and questioning her priorities as she pursued her education. Court documents and witness statements revealed that Bryce's parents, particularly his mother, began expressing harsh judgments about Tyeasha's abilities as a mother. These critiques came despite Tyeasha's evident dedication to her son, while simultaneously working toward financial stability through her education, pharmacy job, and small business. They acted as if her desire to finish college somehow proved she wasn't putting her son first, said one of Tyeasha's close friends who witnessed the growing hostility. But anyone who knew Ty understood everything she did was for that little boy's future. As Bryce's parents gained influence, the power dynamics shifted dramatically. What should have been discussions between two young parents frequently became 3-against-1 scenarios, with Tyeasha facing a united front of criticism and resistance. The Curry family home, where custody exchanges often took place, transformed from neutral ground into territory where Tyeasha felt increasingly unwelcome and scrutinized. Witnesses close to both families noted that Bryce himself appeared caught between loyalty to his parents and maintaining a functional relationship with his son's mother. In some instances, plans Tyeasha and Bryce had agreed upon would change unexpectedly after he consulted with his parents, leaving Tyeasha scrambling to adjust her work and class schedules. Text messages recovered from Tyeasha's phone showed mounting frustration as communication deteriorated. "I just need consistency," she wrote in one message to Bryce. "I can't keep changing my school schedule at the last minute when you say you can't take him." By early 2023, the situation had deteriorated significantly. Custody exchanges became tense encounters, with Tyeasha often feeling forced to defend her parenting decisions to not just Bryce but his entire family. Phone calls intended to coordinate logistics for their son frequently devolved into heated arguments that left both parties angry and resentful. The most alarming development was the increasingly hostile attitude displayed by Bryce's father, Tyeasha Curry. Multiple witnesses reported seeing him intervene in conversations between Tyeasha and Bryce, making comments that undermined her authority as a parent. His presence during exchanges grew more confrontational, creating an atmosphere of intimidation that Tyeasha confided about to friends and family. "She told me she was scared to go to their house," one friend later testified, "but she didn't feel like she had a choice if she wanted to see her baby." The custody situation reached a crisis point in February 2023. On February 20th, Bryce informed Tyeasha that he couldn't care for their son the following day, as previously planned, a change that would force her to miss an important class. The resulting argument escalated beyond previous disagreements, with accusations and recriminations from both sides. What neither realized was that this seemingly routine conflict over scheduling would set in motion events leading to an irreversible tragedy, one that would leave a young boy without his mother and exposed the dangerous consequences of allowing custody disputes to intensify without proper safeguards or intervention. February 20th, 2023, began with a phone call that would set tragic events in motion. That morning, Bryce Curry contacted Tyeasha to inform her that he would be unable to care for their son Tyeasha the following day. A day when Tyeasha had important biology classes scheduled at Austin Peay State University. This last-minute change disrupted plans that had been in place for days. According to phone records and witness statements, the conversation quickly became heated. Tyeasha expressed frustration over Bryce's inconsistency, pointing out that these frequent changes were affecting her academic performance. Bryce, feeling defensive, reportedly told her that his own obligations took precedence. What might have been resolved as a scheduling conflict between reasonable co-parents instead escalated into a bitter exchange. During this argument, statements from Tyeasha's friends indicate that a family member, believed to be Bryce's mother, joined the call and made derogatory comments about Tyeasha's parenting abilities. These personal attacks intensified an already tense situation. By the end of the call, Tyeasha was upset but resolute. She would go to the Curry family home that evening to collect her son. Concerned about her safety after previous tense encounters with the Curry family, Tyeasha asked two close friends to accompany her. Text messages recovered from her phone show she was apprehensive about the visit. "I don't want drama," she wrote to a friend at 4:37 p.m. "I just need to get my baby." Around 6:30 p.m., Tyeasha and her two friends arrived at the Curry residence. Aware of previous hostility, one friend handed Tyeasha a stun device before she approached the door, a precautionary measure that would later become a point of contention in the investigation. Her friends remained in the car, watching as Tyeasha walked up to the front door of the house where her son was staying. According to security camera footage later recovered from a neighboring home, Tyeasha knocked on the door at approximately 6:32 p.m. The door opened, and although audio was not captured, body language suggested an immediate tension. Witnesses state that Tyeasha Curry, Bryce's father, answered the door instead of Bryce himself, a departure from their usual practice during custody exchanges. What happened next occurred in less than 90 seconds. Statements from Tyeasha's friends, who witnessed the encounter from the car, describe a brief but intense verbal exchange. Tyeasha Curry's posture became increasingly aggressive, stepping toward Tyeasha rather than allowing her to enter or bringing Tyeasha to the door. At some point during this confrontation, Tyeasha Curry produced a handgun. Witness accounts differ slightly on what provoked this escalation. The Curry family would later claim that Tyeasha had attempted to use the stun device, making Tyeasha fear for his safety. However, Tyeasha's friends maintained that the stun device remained in her pocket throughout the encounter, and that she had only raised her voice, not her hands. What is undisputed is what happened next. Tyeasha Curry fired his weapon multiple times at close range. Forensic evidence confirmed that 5 shots were discharged from his handgun. All 5 bullets struck Tyeasha, 2 in her chest, 1 in her abdomen, 1 in her arm, and 1 in her lower back as she turned to flee. Despite sustaining catastrophic injuries, Tyeasha managed to stagger back toward her vehicle. Security footage shows her friends exiting the car to help her as she collapsed against the driver's side door. They helped her into the vehicle as shouting continued from the Curry residence. In what police described as a final act of desperation, Tyeasha attempted to drive away from the scene. However, the severity of her injuries caused her to lose consciousness within seconds. Her vehicle veered off the road and came to rest in a neighboring yard approximately 50 yards from the Curry home. Her friends immediately called 911 while attempting to provide first aid. Neighbors, hearing the commotion, rushed to assist. Emergency medical technicians arrived within minutes, but the damage was too extensive. Tyeasha Starks was pronounced dead at 7:14 p.m., just 42 minutes after arriving to pick up her son. Inside the Curry home, 1-year-old Tyeasha remained oblivious to the fact that he would never see his mother again. In the chaotic aftermath, police secured the scene and began collecting statements. Tyeasha Curry immediately claimed self-defense, telling officers that he felt threatened when Tyeasha appeared at his door. This claim would become the centerpiece of a controversial investigation that left a family and community demanding answers. If you're finding this story powerful and important, please take a moment to hit the like button and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Your engagement helps ensure stories like Tyeasha's reach more viewers and spark important conversations about custody disputes and violence prevention. We're only halfway through this tragic case, and what comes next reveals troubling questions about our justice system. Subscribe now if you haven't already to make sure you don't miss the conclusion of this story and others like it. Your support makes it possible for us to continue sharing these crucial narratives. In the hours following the shooting, the Madison County Sheriff's Office conducted their initial investigation at the scene. Officers separated witnesses, collected shell casings, and documented the position of Tyeasha's vehicle in the neighboring yard. Tyeasha Curry was taken in for questioning but was not placed under arrest, a decision that would soon generate controversy. During his interview with investigators, Tyeasha Curry presented a straightforward claim of self-defense. According to police reports, he stated that Tyeasha had arrived at his home in an agitated state and had attempted to use a stun device on him when he answered the door. He characterized his actions as a necessary response to protect himself and his family. This explanation appeared to satisfy the initial investigators, who released Tyeasha Curry without charges pending further review. The handling of evidence raised immediate concerns among Tyeasha's family and legal observers. The stun device, central to the self-defense claim, was collected from the scene, but questions emerged about whether it had been activated or even removed from Tyeasha's pocket. Forensic reports were inconclusive on this critical point. Additionally, the distance between Tyeasha and Tyeasha during the shooting, as well as the number of shots fired, seemed inconsistent with a typical self-defense scenario. Witness statements collected from Tyeasha's friends directly contradicted key elements of Tyeasha Curry's account. Both maintained that Tyeasha never brandished or attempted to use the stun device. They described her approach to the door as cautious rather than aggressive, stating she had kept her hands visible throughout the brief encounter. These contradicting narratives created a troubling divide in the investigation. Perhaps most disturbing was the apparent lack of thorough follow-up by investigators. Security footage from neighboring properties, which could have provided crucial objective evidence of the confrontation, was not immediately collected in its entirety. Several neighbors who heard the altercation reported that their statements were taken hastily or not at all in the days following the incident. As days passed without an arrest, Tyeasha's family began organizing protests outside the Madison County Sheriff's Office. Her mother became the voice of a growing movement, appearing at community meetings and speaking to local media about the lack of progress in the case. "My daughter went to get her baby," she told reporters during one emotional press conference. "She left in a body bag. How is that justice?" The family's advocacy garnered increasing attention from regional news outlets. WBBJ-TV began regular coverage of the case, highlighting the discrepancies in the investigation and giving voice to community concerns about selective enforcement. The North Carolina Beat, an online news platform focused on justice issues, published a detailed analysis of the case that questioned whether implicit bias had influenced the investigation. Public pressure mounted through organized vigils and social media campaigns that used hashtags like Justice for Tyeasha. These efforts attracted civil rights attorneys who offered to represent the family pro bono. Their legal team filed formal complaints about the handling of the investigation and requested all evidence be preserved for potential future proceedings. Approximately 3 weeks after the shooting, the Madison County Sheriff's Office announced they were transferring the case to the District Attorney's Office for review, a move many interpreted as an attempt to deflect growing criticism. The district attorney promised a comprehensive examination of all evidence and witness statements before making a determination about charges. This transfer marked a new phase in the family's fight for accountability. Their attorneys formally requested that the DA consider charges ranging from second-degree murder to voluntary manslaughter, arguing that the number of shots fired and the presence of witnesses contradicted the self-defense narrative. They also highlighted Tennessee's legal standard for self-defense, which requires a reasonable perception of imminent danger and a proportional response. The legal battle intensified when Tyeasha's family filed a wrongful death civil suit against Tyeasha Curry, seeking damages for her son's future support and care. This parallel legal action allowed their attorneys to conduct independent depositions and evidence gathering, potentially uncovering information not prioritized in the criminal investigation. As months passed, the district attorney's deliberations continued without public updates on potential charges. This silence fueled speculation about preferential treatment and systemic barriers to justice. Tyeasha's family established a GoFundMe campaign to cover mounting legal expenses and therapy for her son, who now lived with Tyeasha's mother. The campaign description became another platform to keep public attention focused on the case. Regardless of the legal outcome, one fact remained undisputed. A young mother who went to collect her child was shot 5 times and died. The quest to determine whether this constituted justifiable self-defense or criminal homicide would test the community's faith in the legal system and expose deep divisions in how such cases are perceived and processed. Tyeasha Stark's death represents far more than an isolated incident of violence. Her case highlights a dangerous pattern that plays out across the country when custody arrangements collapse into hostility. Data from the U.S. Department of Justice indicates that custody exchanges rank among the most volatile situations for separated parents, with hundreds of violent incidents occurring annually during these interactions. What makes Tyeasha's story particularly significant is how it exposes multiple points where intervention might have prevented tragedy. The informal nature of her custody arrangement with Bryce Curry created a dangerous foundation from the start. Without court oversight or legal documentation, the agreement relied entirely on mutual cooperation and goodwill, resources that diminished as family tensions increased. Family law experts who reviewed the case noted that formal custody agreements typically include specific protocols for exchanges, often designating neutral locations such as police station parking lots or family court facilities where safety is prioritized. Had Tyeasha and Bryce established such formal arrangements, their exchange would not have occurred at the highly charged environment of the Curry family home. Informal arrangements work only when both parties maintain mutual respect, explained one family court judge who spoke about the case at a legal forum. Once third parties become involved or hostility develops, these arrangements can quickly become dangerous. The absence of early intervention represents another critical failure. Despite escalating verbal conflicts and reported hostility from Bryce's parents in the weeks leading up to the shooting, no formal mediation was initiated. Many jurisdictions offer free or low-cost mediation services specifically designed to diffuse co-parenting conflicts before they become dangerous, yet awareness of these resources remains limited in many communities. Beyond the immediate circumstances, Tyeasha's death raises profound questions about how the legal system protects vulnerable parents. Current protocols often treat custody disputes as purely administrative matters, rather than potential safety concerns. Law enforcement training rarely addresses the unique dynamics of custody exchanges, despite statistics showing their potential for volatility. For Tansiton, the consequences of these systemic gaps are deeply personal. At just 1 year old, he lost his mother permanently and was thrust into a family dynamic forever altered by violence. Child development specialists note that even very young children experience trauma from such dramatic changes in their care environment, with potential long-term effects on attachment and emotional security. Following Tyeasha's death, her mother assumed primary care for Tansiton, establishing a household focused on preserving connections to Tyeasha's memory while navigating the practical challenges of raising her grandson. The GoFundMe campaign, initiated by family members, sought not only to cover immediate needs, but also to establish a trust for Tansiton's future educational expenses, the very future Tyeasha had been working toward as a university student. The community response expanded beyond expressions of grief to concrete calls for change. Local advocacy groups organized forums on custody safety, inviting legal experts to educate parents about formal protection options. These sessions specifically address the heightened risks when extended family members become involved in custody disputes, as occurred with Tyeasha Curry's fatal intervention. Several state legislators took note of the case, with 2 representatives announcing plans to introduce a bill informally referred to as Tyeasha's Law. The proposed legislation would mandate safety protocols for custody exchanges when any reports of hostility have occurred, including requirements for neutral exchange locations and the option for supervised transfers. Churches and community organizations in Brownsville created support networks for single parents navigating complex custody situations, offering both practical guidance and emotional support. These grassroots efforts acknowledged that many young parents, like Tyeasha, lack access to legal resources that might protect them during family conflicts. Most significantly, Tyeasha's case prompted renewed examination of how domestic disputes are classified and addressed by law enforcement. Police departments in several nearby counties instituted specialized training for officers responding to custody disagreements, recognizing that these situations require unique de-escalation techniques and safety assessments. Through these responses, Tyeasha's brief life continues to create meaningful impact. Her tragic death illuminates dangerous gaps in current systems, while inspiring concrete changes that may prevent similar tragedies. For a community grappling with loss, these reform efforts provide a channel for grief to transform into meaningful action, ensuring that Tyeasha's story becomes not just a cautionary tale, but a catalyst for essential change. As legal proceedings continue and community advocacy grows, those who knew Tyeasha Starks insist that her identity extends far beyond the tragic circumstances of her death. Former classmates from Haywood High School describe a young woman whose academic achievements were matched by her genuine kindness toward others. Her biology professor at Austin Peay State University recalled her as intellectually curious and determined, a student who asked thoughtful questions and submitted work that demonstrated genuine passion for the field. Customers from her business, Ties Extensions, shared stories of her patience and creativity. "She made everyone feel beautiful," said one regular client. "She listened to what you wanted, but also knew exactly what would look best for you." These small interactions revealed Tyeasha's natural talent for connecting with others, a quality that would have served her well in her planned dental career. Most poignantly, those who saw her with Tansiton described a mother whose face lit up around her son. Videos saved on her phone show her singing to him, teaching him words, and documenting his first steps. Ordinary moments that now preserve her voice and presence for a child too young to retain his own memories of her. On the anniversary of her death, community members established a scholarship fund in Tyeasha's name at Austin Peay State University, specifically designated for single parents pursuing healthcare careers. This living tribute ensures that her academic aspirations continue to inspire others facing similar challenges. For her family, the pursuit of legal accountability remains ongoing. Court dates continue to approach and pass, each representing another opportunity for resolution. Meanwhile, they focus on raising Tansiton with stories of his mother's strength, ensuring he knows the full measure of who she was. Thank you for watching this documentary about Tyeasha Starks. If her story moved you, please subscribe to our channel for more in-depth examinations of cases that deserve attention. Your comments help extend the conversation about protecting vulnerable parents during custody disputes. Share this video with those who might benefit from understanding these risks. Most importantly, remember Tyeasha not just for how she died, but for how brilliantly she lived as a student, entrepreneur, friend, and loving mother.